I'm here to remind you of the mess you made when you went away. It's not fair to deny me the cross I bear that you gave to me. You ought to know. Welcome back to StillerBros at the movies, everybody. And Snoogans.
Today we're talking about something that's a little different. This is going to be a bit of a different episode because we're talking about a movie we've already seen.
So I'm not going to go ahead and call this a sub-series of StillerBros at the movies because that would require us going to a lot more re-releases than we ever have. But this is just too fun of something to not talk about, and also, when else is Mason going to gush about his obsession with Kevin Smith?
I don't think we're ever going to see that. So, today we are seeing the 25th anniversary of Dogma.
So, Dogma is the fourth movie Kevin Smith ever made, which is a weird thing to say because usually around the fourth movie is the time when you stop counting.
Yeah, but Kevin Smith was bit of an auteur indie darling at the time that he was making this movie, and it was kind of his first big budget movie. The first movie he made was, of course, Clerks, which he only made for about $27,000 through credit cards. The second movie he made was Universal, giving him money to make Clerks in a mall, essentially, with mall rats. And then for about $550,000, he made Chasing Amy, his third film,
which was his attempt at being a grown-up movie. But nowadays, everybody who's seen it, at least recently, has been like, this didn't age as well as it probably could have.
Although, for 1997, the politics of sexuality being explored in a movie was pretty progressive, and you can at least say that he was showing sexual fluidity in a time when a lot of people in the mainstream didn't even know what the term bisexual meant.
But Dogma was a big swing for Kevin Smith. This was not just the first movie where he had to, do effects work and actually do, real research into what the movie needed to be specifically about. It was also the first movie where you could argue he started working with real actors.
Yeah, because in this movie, we've got Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, both fresh off of winning the Oscar for Good Will Hunting.
You got Alan Rickman and Chris Rock, and George Carlin gets a cameo. Janine Garofalo's in here. They even have Canadian pop singer Alanis Morissette playing the role of God. That's basically like if someone was making a movie like this and they cast Taylor Swift as God now.
You know, somewhere out there that's probably going to happen at some point.
Yeah, probably. But Dogma is a movie that is not exactly considered one of the essentials of Kevin Smith's canon, but it was a big movie for him, and so they need to kind of celebrate the 25th anniversary 1 year late.
Yes. So, in order to talk about why we're seeing the 25th anniversary screening 26 years after the release, we kind of have to talk about something we don't really want to talk about, which, when talking about this movie, we kind of also have to talk about another thing we don't really talk about that much, but we'll save that for later. But we kind of have to talk about Harvey Weinstein.
Like it or not, this guy was once one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. And obviously, he exploited that for terrible things. Obviously, it's horrible but also we can't deny the fact that he has a large place in a certain era of film history.
And around the time that this was being made, he basically saved it from a lot of stuff that was going on. Because of the subject matter of this movie, which is, of course, Catholicism and religion in general and Catholic dogma, a lot of religious groups were protesting this. And so
Kevin Smith himself protested.
Yes, which is one of the funniest things about this movie, is if you look it up, there's video of Kevin Smith protesting the movie under an assumed name because the group that wanted 1,500 to show up only had 15. But because the Weinsteins were attached to it, and of course Weinsteins are not Catholic, they came after this movie, especially because it was with Miramax, which at the time was owned by Disney.
But the fact that this movie got made and came out, and nowadays is barely thought about, is probably the biggest blessing in disguise for it.
Yeah, and the reason it came out that way is because was Harvey and Bob Weinstein bought the movie off of Miramax, and they gave the rights to distribution to Lionsgate. And Harvey and Bob owned the movie outright for so long, and with that came the problem when all of this shit came out about Harvey, and he ended up going to jail, where he deservedly is currently dying of cancer.
But the thing is, that created a problem for Kevin Smith, because Kevin had been so connected to the Weinsteins since pretty much the beginning of his career that the fact is that most of his movies have either one of the Weinstein's production labels attached to them. So when Harvey's problems started really coming to public light, Kevin Smith obviously wanted to distance himself from that, so he declared that any one of his movies that was produced by the Weinsteins is not going to be where his royalties come from. He's officially donating those to charity for as long as he's still getting checks from them.
Although obviously he's since stated that he's not getting as much money as he thought he was from those, so he's going to be making regular donations of his own money, but that's neither here nor there. But now, after 25 years, they finally got the rights back from the Weinsteins, and now Kevin, in his normal way of doing things, is deciding, I'm taking this bitch on tour.
Yeah, so we're not just going to an anniversary screening of Dogma, we're going to an anniversary roadshow screening of Dogma, which Kevin Smith himself is supposed to be at.
Yes, we're going to a Q&A. We're going to be able to actually see Kevin Smith. Whether we'll actually be able to talk to him is up in the air right now. But it'll be just awesome to be able to go to see a live show with Kevin Smith there present, and just to have him come out and do his whole hey and his whole bit.
And yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride to just be at a Kevin Smith Q&A. Because yes, we've watched a couple of the Kevin Smith Q&A special that he's filmed and released on DVD and streaming and stuff like that. So we know for a fact that if there's anything to know about Kevin Smith, it's that once you get him talking about something, he will not shut up.
And that is probably one of the most beautiful things about this man, is that the passion he shows for everything that he can talk about. You just pull his string and he will go, and he is just a wonderful well of knowledge and insight and stories. He can go for so long, and I can have and will listen to this man talk for hours about anything.
Yeah, the fact that he is basically created this whole empire just basically based on having him just talk non-stop. The fact that he was one of the first celebrities to jump on the burgeoning podcast market before everyone and their mother had a podcast.
Yeah.
Just kind of says something about the fact that Kevin Smith is very much a force of personality as much as he is a one-time Gen X filmmaking icon.
And I think that can basically be said for a lot of Kevin Smith's career, because he made a movie off of independently because he saw other people do that and was like, I can do that. So before anybody else was going around making movies independently, he was making movies independently. When blogs and internet and websites and stuff were coming around, he got a blog and a website and a message board where he could talk to fans. In the pre-social media days, when podcasting started to become a thing, he was like, I want to do that, so he made a podcast.
Kevin Smith seems to be one of those guys who, while the movies have been staying in a certain level for a long time, he's kind of been one of those guys who's like, oh, I can get myself out there and talk to people? Well, I'm going to do that. And and of course, there's the fact that Kevin Smith just seems like a genuinely nice guy who, like, wants to just make movies with his friends. It's him and Adam Sandler are basically the same kind of guys where they're just like, if I could just make a whole movie that's just me and my friends hanging out, then I'm gonna make it, because why else would you make Jay and Silent Bob reboot and Clerks 3 so long after the originals?
Yeah, it's basically just, he makes movies just so he can continue to pal around and hang out with his friends, and continue to be part of this industry. And he's just one of those people who seems like a genuinely nice guy. He's had his controversies, obviously, with the Too Fat to Fly thing and the Bruce Willis thing, the 2011 Sundance debacle. But nowadays, post-heart attack and post-mental health break and everything, he has basically just become a beacon of positivity to the world.
And I think most of that has to do with the fact that the guy he most outspokenly considers his mentor on this side of things is the late, great Stan Lee. And Stan Lee, who also was a guy who had his big creative boom, and then at a certain point the creativity just started to hit a bit of a lull. And then from that, he just decided to become basically a character of himself and just hang out with people, be this beacon of optimism and creativity amongst the people who are most inclined to like his stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of who Stan Lee was for a while, and that's kind of who Kevin Smith is now. Like, Kevin Smith, I don't think has missed a Comic-Con in decades.
Not even during COVID. He was at the at-home Comic-Cons.
Even if he doesn't have anything to promote, he's like hosting panels and just hanging out.
He's had a Hall H panel where he just does a Q&A for the longest time. He's done Q&As at so many big cons, he's done stuff at Star Wars Celebration. He's done stuff at Comic-Con. He's done stuff at cons all over the country.
The fact that people keep hiring him just basically to promote their movies, like whether it be DC needing to promote the new DCEU movies, Star Wars Celebration, stuff like that, just kind of shows that people just want Kevin Smith around sometimes.
Yeah, and the fact that he's still selling tickets, like, the show we're going to is the second in a sold-out show.
Yeah, the first screening of the night
was sold out in a day. So they added a second show.
And so we're going to the second show. And some would say that this ramble, where we barely talk about the movie, is kind of not weird for us. Hell, you could contribute the way that we talk about all this stuff to the Kevin Smith method of use the base level there as a jumping off point to whatever bullshit stand-up routine we want to do. But the thing is, Dogma is the movie that Kevin Smith actually had to work at, like we said.
It might be his smartest written movie, because at his fourth movie, it was probably the first one that actually had, like, a plot and structure and foreshadowing and arcs.
And it wasn't just a bunch of guys sitting around talking about comic books, because that's what Kevin Smith thought of when he thought of what should I have these characters doing? I'll have them do what me and my friends do all the time. Sit around and talk about comic books and Star Wars.
Like, before this, Chasing Amy kind of had a structure, but it still was just a lot of scenes of people sitting around talking with, like, stuff stuck to the end of them so that we could just get to the next part of the relationships of these characters. But with Mallrats and Clerks, those were just collections of scenes
that eventually got to the point of, hey, it's all going to work out for these guys.
And look, Jay and Silent Bob have a monkey. That's going to pay off eventually, I guess.
But Dogma was the first one where it felt like a scene led into the next scene. And yeah, it's been years since I've actually sat down and watched Dogma, so...
Once again, because of what happened, of everything, because the movie was out of print for a long time, and then home media rights fell back to the Weinsteins, and they didn't have it on digital or streaming, because there was no digital or streaming when the rights came around, so...
So basically what we're going to be seeing is the first time that Dogma has not only been in theaters in years, but also a new scan of Dogma that's enhanced to new theater quality.
A 4K restoration. All we know is that that's going to be included later when this goes wide on June 5th, but we're going to the screening tonight because we're going to be seeing a Q&A with Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to get a lot of stuff out of that Q&A because... You know, like I said, once you get Kevin Smith going, he just does not stop talking.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get a lot out of it, and hopefully we don't have to be miserable waking up for work tomorrow morning.
For me, worth it.
But, yeah. I guess like Kevin Smith, once you get us going, we cannot shut up either, because I don't know what else to say before the movie, so I guess we'll see you after the jump.
Hey, everybody! Woo! Welcome, children, and welcome to Dogma, the Resurrection Tour. I'm Kevin Smith. And we are feeling fucking Minnesota tonight, man. Holy shit. Minnesota again. I mean, for you guys, it's Minnesota every day. But for me, I return all the time. This is the land of fucking mall rats. Right now, I saw your hand go up, man. What's your name with the Screen Junkie shirt?
Mason.
Mason, give it up for Mason. Mason.
I just want to say that this is the second that I might be my brother and I might be the youngest people in this room to say this is our second time in a mall with you, because we were there when you shot mall rats.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
So, what do you mean? What were you doing there?
Our mom brought us there while you were filming there.
What was that like?
We were 1 year old. We don't remember.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. That was some of the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. That's also the most comfortable I've ever been in a public speaking situation, so you gotta give me props for that, guys.
But, yeah, like I said, Kevin Smith talks a lot, so what little of the movie that I can remember, because it felt like he talked for almost as long as the movie was going, we'll talk about. But the experience we more are in the moment of is the fact that we saw Kevin Smith talk live in front of us and talk to us.
Yes. So, for starters, the movie is great. It shows you a side of Ben Affleck you don't normally see, where he's a villain.
Yeah, the movie is just, you almost forget how good a lot of the performances and especially the script is.
Yeah.
Like, this might just be one of the best scripts Kevin Smith ever wrote.
Yeah.
And that's saying something when you consider that he's also strangely written like an entire Masters of the Universe sequel series.
2 seasons of it, yeah.
But yeah, Dogma is still one of those movies that there are times where it's not like the best directed movie, where it's just kind of, okay, people are talking, so we're just going to point the camera at them and stuff like that. But when it works, it does work. The scene where Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are in that parking garage talking about Bartleby's crisis of faith and
what I like to call the Lucifer rant
is just a really well written and directed scene, and Ben Affleck's acting in it is just mwah. And Jason Lee is just great throughout it.
Yeah.
Like, Jason Lee is kind of an underrated actor when it comes to stuff like this, and when he gets to do just slimy bastard stuff like he did in this particular movie is just amazing.
I mean, it's like Evan said in the Q&A when he was talking about Jason Lee. He gives us something, but also off of the strength of this, he got Syndrome in The Incredibles.
But I truly have learned to get a new appreciation for Jason Lee by rewatching this movie. I just really appreciated this movie again. I just really appreciated this movie more than I probably did the first time we watched it way back about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while since we watched this.
But, that's the thing. And the Q&A afterwards, Kevin talks about all this amazing kind of stuff where it's like, here's how we got mall rats made, here's how we got this made. Is Moose Jaws ever going to get made? Probably. It's on the way.
But one thing that really resonates is he talks about his dad, and he talks about the relationship he had with his dad going to the movies. And I've heard these stories before, but this time, for some reason, it got me choked up because it got me thinking about that's the kind of relationship we had with our grandfather. And for those who don't know, our grandfather passed away 2 years ago, and
it just kind of feels like we're closer to him. Like, there was a point in our Q&A where Kevin talks about how energy is never really gone, how all we need to do to bring back our lost loved ones is to talk about them. And part of me just suddenly conjured up images of Grandpa and was like, you're here now. You don't want to be, probably, but you're here.
Like, it's one of those things where I remember after he passed, sitting at home and watching Star Trek, and he loved Star Trek, and I looked at a chair next to me, and our dog just sat there and stared at it like somebody was sitting there, and it just made me look over and be like, hi.
I didn't expect to be crying while talking about a Kevin Smith Q&A and movie, but here I am sitting here because moments like, but yeah, this was just kind of a powerful experience, especially because the movie is just as good as it possibly could be. I think the fact is that Kevin Smith, to use a term that would be perfectly at home in a Kevin Smith movie, Kevin Smith is the kind of guy whose skill levels are just kind of medium-sized for most of it, but then he maxed out his charisma.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Smith is nothing if not a fantastic writer and an even better public speaker.
Yeah.
The man's improvs on a dime.
Like, you hear us talking in that clip, me talking in that clip, and I'm stammering and tripping over my words. That's not him at all. He's
on it.
He's on it.
And yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, he's just been doing this for a long time, and he's so good at it. Granted, we can't be like, we recommend you go do this, because this is not the kind of thing where it's going to happen a lot. Like, this isn't like one of our usual videos where we're like, go see this movie, because for one thing, this movie is, the version of this movie that we saw is going to be slightly different, because the odds are pretty good that most people won't have Kevin Smith like talking before and after the movie with them, but still, the movie is good. Kevin Smith seems like just the nicest guy when people were leaving a little early, because it's late at night. It's almost midnight right now as we're talking. But every single time he would catch someone leaving the theater early because once again it's late at night, he would just be like, okay, get home safe, and I'm just gonna keep talking. And so he kept talking, and eventually the theater emptied out. And honestly, we were so close behind him as he was leaving that we're just like, he is walking with a purpose. He is going.
Like, we were out following him a little bit just to be like, if we catch up to him, maybe we can grab a selfie.
But we didn't, and he was gone. We have no clue where he went afterwards.
We know where he was. We just saw him walking away, and we're all like, where are you going, bud? You are just, wherever you're going, nothing's stopping you.
You are booking it, man. So, Kev, if you see this, you don't need to tell us where you were going.
No.
But it's just nice to know that it would just be nice to know that you saw this.
Also, pineapple douche.
Pineapple douche, indeed. But this is just kind of this was an experience, and I'm glad we had it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a much bigger Kevin Smith fan than I am.
Guilty.
But yeah, I definitely felt like this was an experience that I'm glad I had.
And again, like he just said, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, so this is a bucket list item for me. I've gotten to talk with the man, and Kevin Smith, at least for a second, knew my name.
And technically, I directed Kevin Smith because I had to tell him I'm zooming in on you so that I can get a good view. So technically, I'm going to say I directed Kevin Smith.
Yes. You gave Kevin Smith direction.
Yeah. Gave him a quick little opening for him to just kind of say something. I'm not putting it in this video, but I did. I did that.
Yep.
But, yeah. I really liked this experience. I liked seeing this movie on the big screen for the first time because while it's not like the best movie I've ever seen, it might not be the best movie I see on the big screen this year, I'm still glad that I got to experience this in a way that I'd never experienced it before and gain a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously, I forgot how good Alan Rickman is in this movie.
You forget just how much George Carlin sounds like he's just reciting a stand-up bit.
Like, he's literally saying stuff that George Carlin, the stand-up comedian, probably would never say, but he's saying it in the George Carlin way that makes it seem like, oh, this is just George Carlin being George Carlin. I just loved being able to experience this in a room full of Kevin Smith fans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. We've gone to places and we're just experiencing this like whole thing, and we loved it.
Yeah, it was an experience that I loved having. It's an experience that I will treasure for the longest time, and it was so worth the money and the time and the fact that I'm probably going to be very, very tired tomorrow.
But yeah, I don't know. This is just, I really liked this, and I would recommend that if you get an opportunity to do something like this and you feel like you want to, go ahead and do it. We got a t-shirt.
I got a t-shirt.
But, yeah, I think barring anything else, that's it. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Dogma, or what you think of Kevin Smith in general in the comments below. And don't forget to tune in next time when we are going to be heroes like the ones on the Wheaties books. Bye.